we are now at what we call Last Rants, and we decided to make Last Rants a special challenge rant or rebuttal to Fanboy D.
Or response.
Or response. Rebuttal, response. To Fanboy D, who took issue a while back. For those of you who weren't watching us back then, Jose and I had done a listing of the top 10, 20, male and female heroes of all time in response to an Entertainment Weekly article. And we just threw out a bunch of names, kind of what our opinion was. And many of you out there also threw out names too, which we had some great lists being compiled there. But when it came to the top female heroes, Wonder Woman was included, at least on our lists, because of what we've always considered her status as a female icon of a hero. And what did Fanboy D say? All right, so Fanboy D doesn't think that Wonder Woman deserves status as a top female hero.
But he's not the only one, mind you.
Yeah, no. And the only reason I'm picking on Fanboy D is because, well, it's fun.
I will say this, though, before we respond to his video. His reasonings why were pretty solid. I mean, his opinions are very valid. He brings up a lot of good points.
He does make some good points. Mind you,
he's not just hating on her. He makes some really good points about it.
He's not hating at all. Mind you, he makes some very reasoned arguments.
Very rational arguments.
But he also makes them from the point of view of a younger fanboy. I will explain why.
Okay. Well, before we get into this, I just want to say that the animated movie that they put out was actually really good. That DC put out, the Wonder Woman one that came out with Kerry Russell voicing Wonder Woman. That was actually really well done. But all right.
So anyway, what are the main arguments to Fanboy D saying that she's not an iconic character? And I'm just going to pick on Fanboy D for now, but then we have some other people to pick on too. Saying that she has not had just that, I guess in a way, that watershed moment, that moment that defined her as a character. And there is a bit of truth to that. But what kind of irks me is when fanboys take Wonder Woman, they put her up against Batman and Superman and say that she doesn't hold up to them. Okay. From the perspective of somebody who read Superman for a very long time, okay, a lot of the fanboys who are really into Superman now, in fact, a lot of the writers who are into Superman now, a lot of the creators that work on the Superman titles now, their Superman iconic moment was Superman the Motion Picture, when Christopher Reeve portrayed Superman in that movie, okay? Mark Waid himself has said that Christopher Reeve is Superman to him. Many creators, you look at what Jeff Johns and Gary Frank did in their run on Superman. That's totally the Christopher Reeve Superman, okay? So if you're looking at a character that's been around since, we're talking since World War II. Yeah. And yet, the watershed moment came in the 70s? Honestly, folks, you're telling me that Wonder Woman is less of a character because...
Well, Wonder Woman, in a smaller version, had her watershed moment in the 70s also.
Which is something
which for some reason, people look down upon the TV show.
Because she was portrayed by Linda Carter, that was it. Well, Fanboy D, you say because everyone remembers her for being played by Linda Carter, everyone remembers Superman for being portrayed by Christopher Reeve. Okay? Brandon Routh, who portrayed Superman in the Superman Returns movie, Christopher Reeve clone. Right. He was cast because he looked like Christopher Reeve. So if that's what you're going to look at, if that's what defines an iconic character in a watershed moment, not quite the most solid argument. Now, Batman. Now, this is the one that really gets to me. Because, again, I remember Batman and what happened with the Batman books before Frank Miller did The Dark Knight Returns. Okay? if you read the Batman books before Dark Knight Returns, the Batman books were really, they were much more lighthearted, not as serious. Really, Batman was more like the Super Friends Batman. I'm not saying exactly like that, but he was more like that. Once Dark Knight Returns came out and it hit huge, the main Batman books started reflecting that tone more. When did Dark Knight Return came out on?
86?
We're talking about the 80s, okay? So you see, Fanboy D and many fanboys just have this idea of Batman and Superman as they are now, thinking that's the way they always were. No, they weren't. But because a lot of current fanboys seem to have a revisionist history. Yes, you can go back and look at the Bob Kane Batman and see that Frank Miller brought out some of that stuff back then. But once Bob Kane was off that book, it totally went the other direction. We had giant pennies and props and typewriters and crap like that.
And the TV show,
and the TV
in the
show.
60s, which was just pretty much
right.
Right.
So you see, to say that because Superman and Batman had these great stories told about them in very recent history, that makes them better characters than Wonder Woman, or that Wonder Woman doesn't hold up, I have to disagree, because Wonder Woman has had some great stories told about her. There have been some top artists, but the fact of the matter is, male readers don't read Wonder Woman. And as has been said, a lot of great, top, talented writers have tried writing Wonder Woman, but they have so many constraints put on them. Like Greg Rucka expressed a lot of frustration when he was writing Wonder Woman.
And I'll tell you right now, I've read some of the older Wonder Woman stuff, and it's not the best stuff, but then again, a lot of the older Batman, Superman stuff really doesn't hold a candle to certain stuff like in the last 20 or 30 years. Mm-hmm. But for me, the defining moment for Wonder Woman was when Greg Rucka started writing that book. Mm-hmm. That he defined what that character meant and just kind of gave her place finally. Mm-hmm. Took a long time, but his run on Wonder Woman was solid, and it laid everything out exactly what she was about, what her thoughts on everything were. In the first story arc, she puts out a memoir, finally. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are like, why should you be doing this? But her feelings on religion, on abortion, on stuff like that. And it was a very controversial book in the DC universe when it came out. And it was such an interesting read because it was very... A lot of people complained that the Rucka run in the beginning was just very slow-paced. Mm-hmm. And it was, deliberately, but there's a lot of cerebral stuff going on there. He needed to lay a lot of the groundwork so you can understand where Wonder Woman is coming from. And to me, that's the point that I really started to like Wonder Woman when Greg Rucka did it. And one of the other complaints that Greg Rucka had, which I actually do have and other people have, is that he wanted to redesign her costume.
Yes, he wanted to change the
costume. And
I
completely agree with that. And it is an iconic costume, but the costume itself needs a serious redesign.
Right.
And he wanted to do that in that series, and DC wouldn't let him. Other creators wanted to redesign the costume. Mm-hmm. DC wouldn't let them. And I don't understand why they won't. I mean, she kind of has, because when she was the whole Diana Prince phase, right, and it had like the all white,
yeah,
and stuff like that.
Which Alan Heinberg brought back for this very, very short run,
right?
That he
which
did
was
on
pretty
Wonder
cool,
Woman.
right?
Yeah.
But they do need to redesign that costume. I seriously think that, and I don't understand why editorial is just so firm on that.
Well, it is. I think part of it is that look that she has. But you're right. It's an incredibly impractical costume, and as Dave Chappelle said, right, in his bit, somewhat whorish, but but still, you can say the same thing about the Superman costume. It's not the most practical thing in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, anyone who saw The Incredibles knows that you shouldn't really have a cape. Batman also, that costume has gone through different iterations.
Yeah, but the Wonder Woman one really never
No,
has,
it doesn't
though.
really change, right.
I mean, they actually remember the crappy red, blue, and blue Superman. I mean, they've actually had him change his costume and his
little
look
bit.
They've
tweaked it.
Right.
Yeah. And
just not completely changed it, though.
Right. And I think the biggest change with Wonder Woman's costume, if any, was she went from having an eagle on her chest to having a stylized WW.
And she used to wear a skirt. Well, actually, her mom did. Hippolyta, when she was
she wore a skirt. Right.
Yeah, so a little bit, but I really wish that they would redesign a costume. I'm going to reiterate that because I really wish that they would.
But I think the problem, though, is, again, there is, dare I say it, I think there's a little bit of sexism in regards to that character. You know, Fanboy D, you yourself admit that you haven't really read the book, or you haven't read a whole lot of the book, and yet you're willing to dismiss her as a particular character. Have you read the Greg Rucka run as Jose has, as I have? You know, I read it when George Perez was doing it, when Phil Jimenez was working on the book. You know, when you had all these top-notch creators working on the book trying to give her that watershed moment.
Or even the Byrne run.
And John Byrne did it was really incredible, too. A lot of top-notch creators, but it seemed like fanboys ignored her. You know, John Byrne got off of doing a top-notch run on the Man of Steel. I mean, the Superman that we know today in comic books is John Byrne's Man of Steel. You know, that's what it is. And that's what a lot of fanboys, they forget. They forget the Kurt Swan Superman before John Byrne. Yeah. And I'm sorry, guys.
That's unfortunate.
It is. And as great as Kurt Swan was, and you had a lot of great, you know, classic writers. Cary Bates wrote Superman for the longest time. The book did not sell. It did not sell at all. Fanboys shunned Superman. It wasn't until John Byrne came along from his X-Men run to reboot Superman did people really start thinking of Superman as an iconic character that you guys insist he always was, which, let's face it, fanboys, and I'm talking to you 20-somethings, you know, back in the day, again, I've been reading comics a lot longer than some of you guys. People didn't care for Batman, and they did not care for Superman.